The darkness is dense, the sound almost non-existent, except for a faint whisper echoing like wind slipping through invisible cracks. It is the voice of something unseen yet ever present. The journey begins not with clarity, but with the fascination of a secret. There are laws that govern the invisible, silent rules that cross centuries, written not in books, but in the very pulse of life. Many have been named, shaped into words, spread through spiritual schools and occult philosophies. Others have been distorted, turned into quick shortcuts that promise instant power. And here lies the first enigma: how to tell apart what is a living law from what is merely a repeated myth. The modern world is filled with spiritual promises wrapped in bright, short phrases. One of these promises is known as the reverse law, the myth that by denying a desire or thinking of its opposite, the universe bends and delivers what you long for most. A seductive idea that by simply inverting your gaze, abundance falls into your hands. But what if it isn't that simple? What if what seems liberating is, in truth, a disguised prison? The soul knows when something does not vibrate with truth. It is like walking through a hall of mirrors, endless reflections, yet none of them real. Each reflection promises an exit. Each exit is only another reflection. That is how the myth of the reverse law operates. A mirror that deceives, offering shortcuts that never lead to the center. Think of how many times human beings have tried to deny their own pain, tried to hide sadness beneath forced smiles, tried to believe that the absence of desire was the same as abundance, tried to convince themselves that inner silence was illumination, when it was only anesthesia. The reverse law feeds on this fragility. It offers quick relief, but not deep truth. And here, the mystery deepens. For while one voice speaks of shortcuts, another, far older, whispers something different. A whisper echoing through ancestral traditions, through stones carved with hermetic wisdom, through the tides that never cease, the law of rhythm. But this law does not promise shortcuts. It does not simplify. It does not disguise. On the contrary, it demands surrender. It demands presence. It demands that you see the hidden movement that governs all, the pulse that makes the heart beat, the sea rise and fall, life bloom and wither. The first question rises like an enigma. How many of the laws we follow are truly alive, and how many are only illusions repeated? The answer will not yet be revealed, because this video does not begin with dry explanations. It begins with a question burning within. What if what you believe to be liberating is precisely what imprisons you? Imagine the ocean for a moment. The surface moves in endless waves, rising, falling, breathing. No tide remains in the same place forever. And yet, there is order in this movement, an invisible beat guiding the waters, as if the universe itself were playing a secret song. This song is ancient, older than temples, older than religions, older even than the stars we see today. It is the song of rhythm. In Hermetic tradition, this principle is called the law of rhythm. The Kybalion, one of Hermetism's most mysterious texts, declares, "Everything flows in and out, everything rises and falls, the pendulum of life swings." As if every aspect of reality were part of a cosmic choreography. The human body obeys this same beat. The breath enters and leaves, in constant balance. The heart contracts and expands. Even the cycles of sleep and wakefulness follow the rhythm of the universe. When you breathe deeply, you are simply echoing the dance of all that exists. This rhythm is not a prison. It is a melody, And when the soul recognizes this movement, something shifts. Suddenly, life's chaos ceases to be a burden and begins to reveal itself as part of an invisible choreography. Close your eyes for a moment. Feel the air entering, fresh, creating space within you. Now feel it leaving, carrying away the weight you no longer need to hold. It is the universe dancing inside you. This is the first anchor moment. A brief practice, almost childlike in its simplicity, yet profound in its truth. To perceive the breath as an inner pendulum, a sway that never stops. A reminder that you are not separate from the law. You are the law in motion. Life asks for this, not resistance, but alignment. Those who fight the tide drown. Those who learn to ride it discover that the wave's force can carry them farther than they ever dreamed. And here, an essential contrast arises. While the reverse law promises shortcuts through denial, the law of rhythm asks for surrender to flow. It is not about inverting what you feel. It is about recognizing that everything, absolutely everything, moves in cycles. Sadness is not eternal. Joy is not eternal. Silence is not eternal. Everything dances. Everything returns. Everything flows. And in this recognition, the human being touches something greater. The certainty that they are not lost. They are simply within a beat. Yet a whisper persists, a question lingering at the edge of consciousness. If everything has rhythm, why do so many still choose the shortcuts of illusion? Imagine yourself in a room full of mirrors. At first, they reflect your image. But as you move forward, the reflections begin to distort. One mirror shows a smile you never made. Another reflects a gaze that isn't yours. Something feels wrong. You try to leave, but each mirror opens only to another reflection, never to a true door. This is the effect of the so-called reverse law in the modern world. A promise wrapped in brightness, yet built on distortions. It was born as an echo of the human desire for shortcuts, the belief that by denying what you feel or inverting your intention, the universe will reward you with abundance. And how did this idea gain strength? We live in an era obsessed with quick formulas. The culture of 10 steps to success, of ready-made quotes that circulate in colorful images. In the midst of this landscape, the reverse law was shaped into popular truth, a simplification that feels magical. Think the opposite of what you want, and the universe will give you exactly what you desire. Seductive, isn't it? But seduction hides the trap, because denying what you feel does not create abundance. It creates inner division. It is like placing a smile over an open wound. On the outside, there is brightness. Inside, the pain still pulses. The myth of inversion builds a dangerous illusion that it is enough to hide what hurts, and the universe will believe your mask. But the universe does not respond to masks. It responds to frequencies. And true frequency does not come from what you claim to think, but from what vibrates in the depths of your being. It is like living inside the Matrix, a system projecting perfect images, while keeping the soul imprisoned in illusion. This is how the reverse law operates, a mirror that reflects possibilities, but never delivers the center of truth. And perhaps that is why so many feel frustrated. They try to deny fear, expecting courage. They try to suffocate sadness, expecting joy. They try to reverse emptiness, expecting wholeness. But the result is different: fatigue, self-deception, and a growing sense of being trapped in a labyrinth of reflections. Here arises the inevitable question: how do we distinguish when we stand before a seductive myth and when we stand before a living law? This question is the portal, because recognizing the deception is only the first step. The next will be to dive into the ancient traditions, where rhythm was not myth, but wisdom carved in stone. Imagine walking through a library so ancient that the air itself seems woven from golden dust. The shelves do not hold only books, but symbols. And at the center rests a green stone, carved with lines no age has been able to erase, the Emerald Tablet. Tradition says that on it, Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great, left a secret, a code that crossed millennia, surviving empires, wars, and silencing attempts. Within it, one message echoes: as above, so below, all moves in rhythms and cycles. This is not just an ancient text. It is a reminder that reality itself is built in flow. The moon waxes and wanes. The tides answer its silent call. The sun rises, reaches its peak, and declines. And we, even when we deny it, follow the same beat. The law of rhythm is not punishment. It is not judgment. It is not dogma. It is simply what is. A hermetic code reminding us, nothing stands still, everything pulses. Traditions gave it many names. The Egyptians saw in the Nile the expression of the sacred rhythm, its floods and retreats bringing both destruction and fertility. The Hindus spoke of the dance of Shiva, creator and destroyer, moving the cosmos with the beat of his steps. The Mayans inscribed cycles in their calendars so precise that even today scientists marvel at their accuracy. All point to the same key: the pendulum returns. If you hold an hourglass in your hands and watch the sand fall, you will see it never stops. Grain after grain, time flows. The same happens with your life, with your mind, with your soul. What today seems eternal, tomorrow has already shifted. This is the anchor moment. Close your eyes and visualize a golden pendulum. See it swinging one way, then the other. No rush, no force, only rhythm. Now imagine this pendulum is your very life. Each emotion, each event, each sorrow, and each joy. Nothing remains fixed. Everything is in transit. This symbol can walk with you in silence. An hourglass on the table, a sketch of a pendulum, a daily reminder that oscillation is not an enemy. It is the beat itself. And perhaps the greatest mistake of modern man is forgetting this. Chasing formulas that promise permanence. Denying movement. Believing one can remain only in the pole of light, only in the tide of abundance. But the ancients never promised such a thing. They knew the soul does not grow by escaping rhythm. It grows by dancing within it. The Hermetic Codex was not written to confuse. It was written to remind. And when we read it with today's eyes, it still whispers. The pendulum always returns. And in that return, life renews. But if rhythm is the ancestral truth, why does the soul resist? Why do we try so hard to force light, deny shadows, erase the natural oscillation? Imagine a man seated before a mirror. He is crying, but, facing his own reflection, he hurriedly wipes the tears and forces a smile. The mirror returns the gesture, yet something breaks inside. The smile does not even convince the reflection. This is the rawest face of resistance. The belief that by denying pain, by inverting what is felt, something miraculous will happen. How many times has the soul tried this shortcut? How many times has someone suffocated the inner scream, only to project artificial calm? The reverse law seduces because it offers this promise, that by forcing light, the shadow will vanish. But what truly happens is different. The shadow does not disappear. It hides. and the more it hides, the stronger it grows. Human life is full of examples of this abyss. The one who denies sadness with rehearsed laughter, until the body falls ill in silence. The one who insists on smiling even when the chest begs for pause, until the soul becomes exhausted. The one who believes repeating positive phrases is enough to turn emptiness into fullness, when in truth the emptiness only dresses itself in empty words. It is here that the abyss of resistance appears, a place where every step feels false, where the soul feels the weight of the artificial, and the body knows. It always knows. The breath grows shallow. The heart races without reason. Sleep brings no rest. They are signs that the pendulum has been forced to only one side, with no room for return. But what if pain itself were part of the movement? What if emptiness were only the other side of the beat? What if sadness were only the night preparing the dawn? Perhaps the problem was never the pain, but the attempt to deny it. Perhaps the mistake is not in the rhythm, but in the resistance. Close your eyes for a moment. Recall a time when you tried to hide what you felt. Perhaps it was fear, perhaps sadness, perhaps anger. Now notice, the emotion never disappeared. It waited in silence for the moment to return. This is the pendulum. This is the cycle that insists on revealing itself, even when we refuse to look. And here arises the question that opens the next passage. What if pain itself were part of the pendulum's movement? The sound of the sea at dawn is different. It is not the same nighttime fury that swallows the sands, nor the silence of low tide exposing forgotten shells. It is a gentle rhythm, almost maternal, waves that come and go like a greater breath embracing the whole earth. This is the secret of the tide. It does not need force to exist. It does not resist its destiny. There is no struggle between rise and fall. There is only a sacred cycle, eternal, inevitable. Human beings, on the other hand, spend centuries trying to fight what is natural. They force the heart to remain always joyful, the mind to stay always calm, life to climb endlessly upward. But the soul, silent, knows the tide cannot be controlled. It can only be navigated. The law of rhythm does not demand denial. It asks for alignment. It does not ask that winter be erased, but that we learn to welcome the cold, knowing spring is already on its way. It does not ask that night be destroyed, but that we recognize in it the womb of dawn. Close your eyes now and choose a natural movement before you. It may be your breath, the flicker of a candle, the song of a bird. Observe for just 1 minute. Recognize the hidden rhythm in this simple gesture. It is the tide speaking to you. This ritual is more powerful than any forced inversion. It returns the human being to the real beat, the awareness that there is a flow in everything, that nothing needs to be pushed or held. One must simply glide on the wave that already exists. Imagine a surfer. He never creates the wave, never demands that it bend to his desire. He waits, observes, senses, and when it rises, he surrenders. This surrender is not passivity. It is wisdom. It is knowing that strength does not lie in forcing, but in flowing. That is the secret of the tide. Those who fight against it drown. Those who learn to glide upon it discover paths they could never walk alone. And perhaps this is the invitation the law of rhythm has always made to us. Not to deny what we feel, not to artificially invert our pain, but to navigate, like an ancient traveler trusting the compass and the wind. Yet here the next question arises. If the secret is to flow, how do we face the inevitable return of the pendulum? How do we endure when the wave, after lifting us high, insists on bringing us back down. There is an almost imperceptible sound that accompanies all existence, the sway of an invisible pendulum. At times, it lifts us, carrying us into states of ecstasy, clarity, and expansion. At others, it returns us to silence, to shadow, to painful introspection. Just as the sun cannot remain fixed on the horizon, nor the heartbeat only in expansion, the pendulum never ceases to return. This is the mark of the universe, inevitable movement. The seasons turn. Heat gives way to cold. The seed breaks, grows, blooms, withers, and returns to the soil. Every detail of life tells the same story. Return is not accident, it is law. And when we resist this return, we suffer. For we want to hold on to summer forever, but autumn arrives. We want to cling to euphoria, but calmness descends upon us. We want eternal youth, but time dances to its own steps. What we reject returns until we learn to integrate it. This is the silent lesson of the law of rhythm. Imagine for a moment a heart that beats only in contraction, never in expansion. It could not sustain life. Imagine a tide that only rises, never falls. It would destroy the shores. Imagine a pendulum that swings only to one side. It breaks. Return is inevitable because it is what sustains harmony. And the soul, in its deep wisdom, knows this. Perhaps this is why many of life's pains seem to repeat. That loss returning in memories. The same insecurity resurfacing in new relationships. The same fear reappearing along different paths. It is not punishment. It is the pendulum coming back, bringing to light what still needs to be seen and integrated. Yet the question pulses like an unresolved mystery. If return is inevitable, how do we keep from being dragged by the swing? For there is a difference between recognizing the movement and being enslaved by it. Between flowing with the tide and drowning in it. Between feeling the oscillation and being destroyed by it. The secret to this difference lies in the next key, the stance of the observer. But before it is revealed, let the echo of the pendulum resound once more in your mind. Return is inevitable. What you reject returns. What you deny persists. What you integrate sets you free. Imagine standing before a great pendulum in motion. It swings to the right, then to the left. Your eyes follow it, and your body almost feels pulled by its sway. It is easy to believe you are captive to this movement. But then a detail reveals itself. At the center of the cord, at the point of suspension, there is total stillness. The pendulum swings, yet the axis does not move. This is the key. Life oscillates. The world turns. Emotions rise and fall. But within you exists a point that remains unmoved. A point untouched by the swing. It is consciousness, the place of the observer. For centuries, spiritual masters have pointed to this secret. In Buddhism, it is called the silent witness. In Hermeticism, the higher mind that transcends the pendulum. In Eastern mysticism, the Atman, the eternal spark that sees without being seen. The human being suffers when they believe themselves to be the pendulum, when they identify completely with pain, with joy, with the oscillation. But liberation begins when one realizes they are not the movement, they are the center. Close your eyes and visualize yourself as this unmoving axis. Imagine all your emotions as the pendulum swinging around you. You do not deny the movement, but neither are you carried away by it. You are the fixed point, the consciousness that observes. This simple exercise can transform crises into portals. Because when the tide rises, you know it will also fall. When sadness weighs, you know it is not eternal. When joy arrives, you welcome it without fear of losing it. You are no longer enslaved by oscillation. And this is the secret of the law of rhythm. Not to resist, not to invert, not to deny, but to observe from the center. Freedom is not in stopping the pendulum, but in realizing that the axis never moves. Now imagine a storm at sea. The waves appear chaotic. The wind pulls everything. But a few meters beneath the surface, the water remains calm. The ocean floor does not stir like the surface. So too is your soul. Behind the chaos, there is a silent space, unmoving, eternal. And the question that opens the next portal is inevitable. If there is an unmoving center within us, why do we still insist on believing more in the illusion of oscillation than in eternal stillness? The sky darkens in the middle of the day. The sun, which seemed unshakable, is covered by the shadow of the moon. For a few minutes, everything changes. The air cools, the birds fall silent, human eyes lift in awe. But then slowly the light returns. The eclipse never lasts forever. So too are illusions. They appear total, absolute, impenetrable. But they always pass. They always give way to the return of truth. The so-called reverse law is like this eclipse. It covers the soul's vision with the shadow of a false promise. We believe control lies in our hands, that we can manipulate life with mental tricks, that it is enough to deny or invert feelings to create abundance. But the shadow is not the sun. It is only a temporary disguise. The human being, in trying to manipulate everything, distances themselves from what is essential, rhythm. For no matter how much one denies, forces, or inverts, the pendulum always returns. Life is not manipulable in its essence. It is rhythmic, not artificial. And there comes a moment when the soul awakens to this. Perhaps after trying 1,000 formulas that failed. Perhaps in the silence of exhaustion, when all masks fall. Perhaps in the instant it realizes the universe does not respond to denials, but to sincere flow. It is at this point that catharsis happens. The myth dissolves. The illusion loses its shine. And what remains is life's eternal beat, dancing with or without our permission. The soul does not need to deny anything. It does not need to erase pain, nor to force smiles. It only needs to learn to listen to the timing of each wave, to welcome the night as part of the cycle, to receive the morning as rebirth. It is like an eclipse. No matter how dense it seems, it never steals the light forever. It only reveals that even shadow has its place in the dance of the cosmos. And what if all suffering were only this? A temporary shadow, an oscillation of the pendulum, an eclipse that soon shifts, the sound of the heart, thump, thump, thump. With each beat, life reminds you, you are rhythm. You don't need to think for it to happen. You don't need to control. The flow is already within you. The universe has always spoken this same language. The rising and dying of the day. The opening and closing of flowers. The breath and the silence of the wind. Everything pulses. Everything dances. Everything returns. For centuries, humanity has tried to fight against this beat. It created myths promising shortcuts, formulas claiming to offer quick power, illusions disguising pain. But the pendulum never stopped moving, and it never will. True freedom is not in forcing opposites, not in denying pain or inverting desire artificially. It is in dancing with the invisible flow. Just as the tide does not need human approval to rise, life does not ask permission to flow. What it asks for is presence. The law of rhythm is not an enemy. It did not come to limit. It is the secret beat of creation, the reminder that every fall prepares the ascent, every night hides the dawn, every farewell announces a new encounter. You don't need to fight the rhythm. You already are the rhythm. Each breath in and out, each heartbeat, each step you take in time, all of it already vibrates in tune with the law. What your soul seeks is not to control the movement, but to recognize itself as part of it. While the world insists on quick formulas, remember, nothing needs to be forced. When you become the unmoving center within the flow, the universe dances with you. The pendulum is not an enemy. It is the beat of creation. And the question that echoes in the silence, like an eternal whisper, is this: will you keep resisting, or will you finally surrender to the dance?